Let's talk industrial real estate. I get the question, do I develop or do I acquire? I'm Jeremiah Boucher. I own Patriot Holdings, been in real estate for 20 plus years investing, have $400 plus million of assets under management. I want to talk about development. And it looks like a smart play when you underwrite it on the back of a napkin, but it's almost never real when you actually do the deal. I'm not saying development's bad, but I'm seeing a lot of groups in 2026 feeling the pain of development when the market turns bad. And they're not bad investors, yet the strategy is more complicated and difficult than they think. And trust me, I know from experience. And I see acquisition operators who convince themselves that it would be better to build rather than sticking to the strategy of just buying and acquiring. And the reality is development takes a whole different skill. So there's a version of the business where you buy existing assets, you collect in-place cash flows, and then those cash flows compound over time. That's traditional acquisition real estate investment. And then there's a version where you develop, you wait, you burn through some capital, you fight the permits, and you hope the market holds. And then when that's all done, the yield is going to be a lot bigger than if you were to acquire an asset. The other development, it's a bet, and it is a lot of risk. In this video, I'm going to talk about why acquisitions in 2026 is far superior over development, and we're going to talk about the specific risks that you can get burned on if you are considering developing or investing in development. Now remember, take this with a grain of salt. There's always a strategy for the right type of investor, but when we're talking about cash flow, we're talking about acquisitions. And that's point one, is that if you're a yield investor, then development's probably not for you. If you are clear that you are looking for cash flow in an investment, then long-term yield is not as important as quarterly cash flow. And that difference matters. So knowing that allows you to realize that existing assets and acquisitions is where you're going to get that cash flow from a safer standpoint. You can actually underwrite the tenants that are in there paying right now. You can see the past performance. You can verify it versus development. Unless you have that tenant in hand, which some developers do, which is a different strategy in general. But if you're developing spec, then you may be enduring a cycle that will take a long time to lease it up, to permit it. And that timeline destroys returns. The longer you wait to generate revenue, the shorter or the lower your returns are going to be. And most real estate deals are built on a 5-year cycle. Some are on 10. But if you're looking at a 5-year cycle, the goal is buy, stabilize, cash flow, and then exit or refinance. And in development, that math can get skewed very quickly. That's why development's not for everybody. And I see a lot of newcomers in the industry getting into it for the wrong reasons because they see a large multiple on the back end, but don't know the challenges or obstacles on the front end. So it's important right out of the gate to know what business you're really in. All right, why acquisitions is better is because of permits. I'd have to say that the bureaucracy of most of these municipalities, counties, building permit departments are ridiculous, and it's only getting worse. And the bigger the market, the worse it is. In Connecticut, I bought a deal. It was 20,000 square feet. I built storage in the back. That went to plan. The front, though, had a tenant, single tenant. That tenant moved. And that building, I then had to convert. So I'm considering this development because I'm redeveloping or converting the property into a new use. And the problem is that there's 3 different types of permits and zoning issues that I have to go through in order to turn this property around. It's a huge burden on the team and it's a time suck and it lowers the IRR. So remember that building that in the pro forma, that a town for any reason, the fire department can slow you down and add in additional fire requirements, additional sprinklers, additional firewalls. And then also the types of uses need to get re-permitted in the zoning. And this is just one municipality. There can be multiple additional permits needed from different municipalities. But that mistake alone deferred me 12 months on that project with no revenue. And that hurts on the cash flow of the asset. So knowing that and carrying the land cost, the debt cost, the additional carry cost with your team and the management, the property taxes, all these things add up and reduce the return. So it's a double-edged sword and it's a compounding effect. So acquisitions doesn't have this problem. Typically, you close on a property, you operate it, and you start collecting rent. You're not needing to get a permit if you did the right due diligence because the permits are already in place. Third point here is development actually requires a heavy, heavy capital requirement, a heavy liquidity need. Construction costs have gone up over the last, well, for the last forever, but 5 years ago, at least they've gone up 30, 40, 50%, depending on the category. So that cost of construction can cause overruns. And there can be site work issues. I had a building in Massachusetts where I built a large industrial building, and the engineer didn't spot the issue of needing to have a retention wall on the side of the property that added an additional 10 to 15% cost to the building. Killed it. It hurt the project dramatically, but we're halfway through the project, and now we have to build this massive retention wall. So it's just another reason why development has a layer of risk that acquisitions doesn't have. And that's the need for liquidity, is having that reserve buffer that it could go over time, it could go over budget. So building that in is a key to withstanding and enduring development, where in acquisitions, you shouldn't have to have as much liquidity, knowing because there's less variables when you're buying the asset. And we all can't calculate what can go wrong, but less risk is on the acquisition side. And if you can forecast how much capital you're going to need in the partnership, that's going to allow you to generate better returns rather than having to put more cash in or you're underfunded because of all those variables that a development brings you. Another reason acquisitions can be more favorable is when you walk the asset, when you walk the building, before you close, you know everything about the property if you do your diligence right. You can see the power requirements, the door sizes, the ceiling heights, the occupancy, the potential repairs that are needed, how many meters are on the property. You can interview the tenants. You get a good feel of how people like the asset and what the neighborhood is like. A big issue with development is, one, you may not know what rents you're going to be able to attract in the market, especially if you time the market wrong and rents are going down. It may be less than what you actually forecasted on the development pro forma. And also, you may need to change what you're developing, where the tenant's requirements are a little different. You need to add in more improvements, or you need to add different layouts. So there's that variable that doesn't give you the certainty of the consistent cash flows that you would get from acquisitions. So to drive home the point, I'm seeing this in self-storage over the last 5 years, and a little bit in small bay industrial, and in high bay industrial, is that a lot of development was done when the market was trending upward. So there was a lot of investors that came in that wanted to get into the game, didn't want to go out and find the deal, didn't want to keep the discipline there. So they just said, I'm going to develop new product, but they didn't really understand the demand in an area or the needs of their storage or industrial tenant. And they came from maybe a storage background where if you just build it, they will come. But now there's a lot of new developments competing for the same number of tenants. So there's a flood of supply in the market. And now it's double the time to actually fill up units. It's double the time to actually get to cash flow. And industrial, there's the same thing, where warehouses have been built all over the country, and these specific requirements that tenants need have now changed, where Amazon's either buying their old building or they're reducing the amount of warehousing they need, or there's a very special type of manufacturing that needs to be done, and they'll either buy their own building or they'll need a unique type of space that has a lot of tenant improvements. So these things all shifted in the last 5 years. But this is how you can get caught in the development trap, where if you're developing through a bad cycle, you're going to have to pivot, and that's more capital requirements and more time. So you could be building the right thing in one market, but then it's the wrong thing as the market changes. An acquisition forces you to look at what's already working in the market, where the tenants are already paying. They already have a history there. The demand already exists. With development, many times without that tenant in hand, you're just speculating. Nothing wrong with that, but the risk versus return, that's what we're talking about with this strategy of buying cash flowing assets versus speculative long-term growth assets. So I want to be fair about this because I've done a lot of development and there's nothing wrong with it. So there is a case for it. It's not wrong for everybody, but knowing what you're walking into and knowing if you have the right connections to get the right permits in that market, you understand how the town works, you have the relationships, you know how to navigate the process with the right counsel, the right legal team behind you. That's a real edge up front. And I have to say, the best of the best developers never take the risk on getting permitting. They make sure they have all their permits in place before they close on buying the piece of land. And then also, the best developers need to have in-house project management. I'm not saying you need to GC it. You would find a general contractor to actually build it, but project management is overseeing the GC. Very rarely is the GC going to do all the work and hold the timeline and the budget and knock out the little details. Somebody needs to be overseeing that GC to execute on the project as the plan. I've learned this, that operators will get hurt where they have a really small team and then they won't have anyone dedicated to the project management that truly knows how to drive that general contractor, hold them accountable, and have the right contracts in place that protect the downside if they go over budget. So the warning here is, if you're going to develop or if you're going to invest in a development, make sure all the permits are in hand, right? I've seen it. A specific example, someone bought an asset. The town said they were going to issue the permit, so the investor closed on the deal, yet the town changed their mind, and now they're sitting with a piece of land that they can't get permitted. And this is tough. I've had this experience myself. So being disciplined and knowing that you have all of the pieces in place before you develop is the number one thing to look out for before you start any development project or invest in a development project yourself. So if you like anything that I'm saying or you align with it and you want to go deeper on these deals, then comment deal below or click on the link. Join the Patriot Deal Room. We're going to talk about tax strategies, deals, market trends, specific deal breakdowns, and we'll go deeper. So I look forward to talking with you. See you on the next one.